How did this happen? The so-called cinematic universe is all the rage these days in Hollywood, even though so far the only studio that's managed to make the damn thing work is the one who kicked off the craze in the first place. But it's easy to see why. What studio exec worth his Jamba Juice isn't going to be interested in a production slate based around the idea of audiences feeling like they're obligated to see movies they otherwise might have no interest in to make sure they're caught up on the meta-narrative of the movies they do care about. But while Marvel may have modernized and perfected it, the cinematic universe was more or less invented by Universal Studios way back in the day, when they loosely connected the plots and characters of their popular horror movies of the 20s to the 1950s by sharing sets, actors, and occasionally specific characters across a branding exercise that we now remember as the Universal Monsters. Now that same studio's new Dark Universe imprint represents an attempt to build a Marvel-style blockbuster slate out of reimagined versions of the cycle's best-known titles and characters, with The Mummy seemingly stepping up to the plate first because a remake of that one worked at least once before with Brendan Fraser. Remember those? Those were a lot of fun until they suddenly weren't. The new Mummy, on the other hand, is an utterly tedious slog and surprisingly cheap-looking one too, given the business machinery behind it, through generic supernatural tropes that nominally features Sofia Boutella as an evil Egyptian princess awakened in present-day Iraq who chases Tom Cruise's ambiguously military, mercenary, treasure hunter, whatever hero to London, hoping to scrounge up some ancient relics that she needs to transform him into a human host for the evil god Set, who I think she's either in love with or possessed by, but who the fuck can even tell, because this movie called The Mummy can barely pretend to even be interested in The Mummy. You see, what this is really all about is introducing all of the tiresome and dreary world-building bullshit that the Marvel movies that this is imitating tends to shunt off to the background of post-credit gags smartly, shoving Sofia Boutella's Mummy aside to instead give us a tedious introduction to Prodigium, a covert monster-fighting secret society run by Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll that serves as the Dark Universe answer to S.H.I.E.L.D. You remember S.H.I.E.L.D., right? The secret government exposition department that Marvel quickly realized wasn't actually all that interesting, so they blew it up in the Captain America sequel and reconstituted it as an NCIS-alike for network TV. Thusly, not only is Tom Cruise as basically just some guy, the main character of The Mummy, instead of the extremely interesting and promising young actress they've cast as The Mummy, it's clear that he's only the main character because they need someone to have all the Prodigium bullshit explained to him. We find out next to nothing about his character, and then it has the nerve to end with an "I'll be important in the sequel's" non-climax that doesn't even bother to tell us what happened, why the fuck it happened, or what we're supposed to be alternately dreading or anticipating is coming next. It's almost like they're going down a checklist of how not to launch a cinematic universe, to the point where it's easy to forget that the only one of these damn thing that's worked so far kept it as simple as having Sam Jackson show up and glibly infer that maybe there were other superheroes. The Mummy, on the other hand, stops its own plot dead for at least 2 embarrassingly long stretches of time to explain Prodigium, which still doesn't make any goddamn sense, show off Dr. Jekyll's Mr. Hyde powers, lovingly pan over tacky Easter eggs setting up Dracula, Creature from the Black Lagoon, and who knows what the fuck else, as though there's some alternate Berenstain dimension where everyone's been on pins for a succession of shitty Universal Monsters reboots. Apart from all that, though, the 40 or so minutes where it's just a Mummy movie is actually mostly just forgettable. Alex Kurtzman's direction is a by-the-numbers collection of genre cliches, so basically the same as his screenwriting. Sofia Boutella is compelling and immensely watchable as ever, trying to play the hell out of whatever they decided her character was supposed to be, but the film just has zero interest in its supposed title player, and poor Annabelle Wallace's role is perfunctory and pointless even for a Tom Cruise love interest, which is saying something. The only one who's consistently entertaining is Crowe, and that's mainly because we're dealing with hammy, paycheck-cashing, clearly doesn't give a fuck dad bod Russell Crowe, which is of course the best Russell Crowe. And then there's Tom Cruise, and even though we've had like a year of trailers to get used to it, the fact that he's in this is still weirder than anything else in this. Yeah, part of the whole Dark Universe gambit is that they're front-loading it with major names like Cruise and Crowe, Johnny Depp, Javier Bardem. Javier, what are you doing? But if you thought that meant these were going to be classy, spare no expense affairs, that does not appear to be the case. I mean, sure, maybe they did put real production muscle behind it and Kurtzman is just so inept at directing that it doesn't actually show up on screen, but this is such a cheesy, chintzy, slapdash looking movie, riddled with ugly day-for-night shooting and mostly built around uninspired claustrophobic sets. It feels like what is still one of the top box office draws in the world, which Cruise still is, has somehow been tricked into starring in one of the Underworld movies or a Resident Evil sequel. Never mind the fact that since he's literally only here to be led around by the hand from one exposition dump to another by like 5 different other main characters, 99% of Cruz's role consists of making confused and exasperated faces in inappropriate close-up that only serves to highlight how hilariously bad his default Mr. Intensity persona is for a performance that's all mugging and spit takes. By the time we're at the big climax and he's getting ragdolled around by Butella and her hench mummies for an absurd length of time, did I finally get to realize that what I was watching amounted to nothing so much as a ripoff of Army of Darkness that didn't realize Army of Darkness was a comedy. Ha! The Mummy is a disaster. A movie that almost seems to have intentionally made every decision incorrectly on purpose, and yet as a result, the whole enterprise is so fucking bafflingly wrong-headed that I almost started to enjoy it for how bad it was. I mean, I can't recommend it because maybe not everyone likes watching the equivalent of a slow-motion freeway pileup comprised entirely of clown cars as I do, but I actually kind of hope they follow through with this stupid dark universe bullshit if they're all going to be as surreally horrible as this one was. But for now, 1 star, it's really bad, you guys.